U.S. President Donald Trump warned that his attack on Iran could extend longer than a month as the war spread Tuesday, with Israel bombarding Lebanon and Tehran targeting U.S. allies in the Gulf, including drones hitting the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia. Now, shortly after the United States urged Americans to flee all West Asian nations, smoke rose above the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh after it was hit by two drones, although there were no immediate reports of injuries. Saudi officials say the strike caused a small fire and minor damage. The embassy issued a shelter-in-place advisory for U.S. citizens in Riyadh, Jeddah and Dhahran. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington will respond soon to the embassy strike. Trump also said that the war, which began Saturday with a strike that killed Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was going substantially ahead of schedule, but that the United States was equipped for a prolonged conflict. Donald Trump also, for the first time, clearly laid out objectives, destroying Iran's missiles being the first, followed by destroying Iran's navy, then the nuclear program, and finally stopping its support for armed militia groups across the region. The goal, notably, did not include toppling the Islamic Republic. Listen in.
An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people, our country itself. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
Moving on now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has presented a strikingly new narrative of how the Iran conflict started, saying that the United States attacked Tehran only after learning that ally Israel was set to strike the country. He claims Tehran was set to target U.S. forces in retaliation, prompting President Donald Trump to act preemptively alongside Israel. Now, having said that, Rubio stressed that while the U.S. has built up military assets in the region, it is not currently planning to deploy ground troops, though that option remains on the table.
The President always has the options to undertake whatever operations he decides to do as the Commander-in-Chief. That said, we believe the objective that we have set for this mission, which is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities, both launch capability and manufacturing, can be achieved without ground forces. Right now, we're not postured for ground forces, but obviously the President has those options.
The Secretary of State Marco Rubio also added that while Washington hopes the Iranian people will ultimately topple the current government, the immediate objective is only to dismantle Iran's ballistic missile capabilities and ensure it cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. Listen in.
We hope that the Iranian people can overthrow this government and establish a new future for that country. We would love for that to be possible. But the objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and of their naval capabilities.
And amid soaring oil prices, Marco Rubio also said the administration will act to contain energy market fallout from the conflict. He said Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Energy Secretary Chris Wright will outline steps to address rising fuel costs soon.
What's your message to Americans who are concerned about rising energy prices given the spiking of oil prices today?
Yes, and we knew that going in would be a factor, and so we have a program in place that will begin to be implemented by Secretary Wright, Secretary Bessent. We talked about it last night, again, about this program. We talked this morning, and starting tomorrow you will see us rolling out those phases to try to mitigate against that. Obviously, markets are going to be reacting to news about what's happening. And again, a reminder, think about it, okay? This terroristic regime, led by radical clerics, has the ability, potentially, to shut off 20% of global energy. That's the kind of leverage they have because of their Navy. We're going to destroy their Navy.
Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says military operations against Iran are not intended to spiral into a prolonged conflict. However, he acknowledged that achieving U.S. objectives will take time. Hegseth outlined those objectives in military terms, saying the Pentagon aims to dismantle Iran's navy and degrade its extensive missile capabilities. He said those systems could otherwise shield any future covert attempts by Tehran to develop a nuclear weapon, a claim Iran continues to deny for all these years.
This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both.